And welcome everybody to another edition of the Brody File. We are so glad you joined us. Well, look, this week, there's been a lot going down over the holidays since we took a little time off, and I'm sure you all tried to decompress from politics for a while too, just like the Brody File, and you just wanted to enjoy some quality time with the family, or maybe you didn't want to enjoy that time. Anyhow, we want to dedicate this section of the show as a tribute to the movie While You Were Sleeping. In other words, what was going on in the world of presidential politics while you were sleeping over the holidays. Get it? We're so creative. All right, well, here goes. Let us start with Ben Carson, because the new year is not off to a good start. We love the good doctor, but his campaign seems like it's now on life support. His campaign manager and communications director have resigned. Some will say they were fired. Anyhow, bottom line, a major shakeup has taken place because it appears that the campaign team and some outside advisors weren't seen eye to eye on strategy, so the outside advisors won, and now, as Dr. Carson tries to put it all back to pieces, it's becoming somewhat of a mess. We'll see how it plays out. Is it too late? We don't know. But there is less than a month to the February 1st Iowa caucuses, and he has dropped big time in the polls. Speaking of the polls, here's something else that was going on while you were sleeping. Ted Cruz on top of the polls in Iowa. Now look, Donald Trump also showing strength in the state too, so it looks to be a two-man race. But at this moment, Cruz is the story, and it's his race to lose. In Iowa, he has strong evangelical support. He also has key endorsements from big-time leaders out in the Hawkeye state, like Congressman Steve King, influential radio show host Steve Deace, and pro-family kingmaker Bob Vanderplaats. We also understand Amber C. Strong may endorse. No, she's not going to do that. Anyhow, Cruz is working the pastor circuit hard as well. He's made some good inroads there too. As a matter of fact, breaking news, the Brody File reports this week that Cruz is going to hold a private meeting with pastors in late January. That is 1 week before the caucus commences. Say that 5 times fast. Anyhow, is Cruz peaking too early? We just don't know right now. But look, Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee are hitting him as a guy who's more of a states' rights, 10th Amendment libertarian guy, rather than a die-hard social conservative who will go to the mat on issues like gay marriage and abortion. So they have ads out against him on this, and we're going to have to see how it does out there and whether or not all of this dings him up and affects his poll numbers. Now, the attacks by Huckabee and Santorum actually could be great news for Donald Trump. That's because those attacks could take away evangelical support for Cruz in Iowa and leave the door open for Trump to win the state of Iowa. We all know his poll numbers, Trump's poll numbers nationally are huge. But will it all translate into actual votes when we get going here shortly? Trump's taking no chances. He's actually spending $2 million a week on campaign ads in the early states of Iowa and New Hampshire. Here's the ad.
The politicians can pretend it's something else, but Donald Trump calls it radical Islamic terrorism. That's why he's calling for a temporary shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until we can figure out what's going on. He'll quickly cut the head off ISIS and take their oil. And he'll stop illegal immigration by building a wall on our southern border that Mexico will pay for.
So can Trump pull it off? Don't write him off. The critics have been writing him off for months, and he is still around. He is still a force in American politics. All right, now on to Hillary Clinton. This just in. She's going to be the Democrat nominee. I know. Shocking. We all know how this is going to end, but in the meantime, she's still taking some hits about certain things that are quite interesting, especially in the Twitter world. How about this one? A classic pandering move to the Hispanic community. Her campaign decided to put up this doozy on their website. Here it is. 7 things Hillary Clinton has in common with your abuela. Now, in case you don't speak Spanish, abuela means grandmother in Spanish, and so yes, Hillary's a grandmother. All right, that's fine. But Twitter lit up and she got blasted for this pandering move because they say, look, Hillary, you didn't grow up poor like my abuela, and you weren't separated by immigration borders too like my abuela. Anyhow, we like this tweet especially. It's under the hashtag #NotMyAbuela. Here it is. One of my abuelas from Utuado, is that how you pronounce it? I don't know, we'll look it up, worked washing the dishes and picking coffee since she was 11 years old. Hillary is hashtag not my abuela. Anyhow, I think Hillary Clinton is obviously going to survive this dust-up. And by the way, we have noticed on the campaign trail, the only candidate that Hillary Clinton is actually talking about is, guess who? Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump seems to be focusing in just on Hillary Clinton as well, and it's like they're already in a general election matchup. And it's the subject of this week's Brody File commentary. Well, could we really be in for a Trump-Clinton general election showdown this fall? Hey, I mean, stranger things have happened. Actually, no, stranger things have not happened. So, I mean, who knows what's in store? But we have noticed that Trump has pretty much been going after Hillary at his recent rallies. It's been going on now for about a month, and he's not just bringing up Benghazi or her tenure as Secretary of State. He's also bringing up, that's right, Bill Clinton's past sexual adultery episodes, emphasis on the plural, episodes. Anyhow, let's be honest here. Trump is the only candidate that will actually go there, if you know what I mean. And you know what? There are plenty of conservative voters who love the fact that he has the guts to do it. Also, Trump is a master at defining the narrative. So by continually going after Hillary, he starts to paint this race as an already done deal, and that he is going to be the nominee. It's true. And as for Hillary, she's figuring, look, taking on Trump only has benefits because she thinks he's unhinged, first of all. And she starts attacking Trump, so that will play well, at least in her mind, to women voters, Hispanic voters, independent voters. So really, it does make sense for both of them to target each other. And that's our Brody File commentary. All right, when we come back, you know, that pesky Congress is getting in the way again. So President Obama is getting out that executive order pen. Oh my gosh. We explain next. And we're back on the Brody File show. You know, one of the big public policy issues that President Obama has been trying to push through for years during his presidency has been some sort of gun control bill up on Capitol Hill. Well, he's had no luck trying to go through Congress, so we all know he's got a pen, he's got a phone, and he's at it again. And to get more answers, we turn to Jenny in the B Block. Jennifer Wishon standing by at the White House with more on all of this. Jenny?
David, President Obama is working to ensure more gun buyers have to submit to background checks. He's also calling on voters to kick out members of Congress who aren't willing to put more restrictions on guns. Peter Reed lost his daughter Mary nearly 9 years ago when a disturbed student opened fire at Virginia Tech. Since then, he's pushed for more background checks on gun buyers.
It's hard for me to understand that anybody would want to get in the way of a background check to make sure that people that are already legally prevented from owning the firearm can't buy the firearm or get it in some other way.
Reed stood with President Obama as he announced plans to skirt Congress and take action on guns, wiping tears as he remembered the mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School.
Every time I think about those kids, it gets me mad.
The president wants to clarify existing law. Anyone who sells guns must get a license and conduct background checks on buyers. He wants to hire 200 ATF agents to better enforce existing gun laws. He'll ask Congress to invest $500 million to expand mental health treatment, and he wants to work with the gun industry to update gun safety technology. The president acknowledges Congress won't likely change gun laws for a long time. Instead, he's focusing on the gun lobby, portraying the National Rifle Association as the big bad wolf.
So the gun lobby may be holding Congress hostage right now, but they cannot hold America hostage. We do not have to accept this carnage as the price of freedom.
The NRA fired back, tweeting, "The American people do not need more emotional, condescending lectures that are completely devoid of the facts." And in a statement, accused the president of trying to distract attention away from his lack of a coherent strategy to keep the American people safe from terrorist attacks. House Speaker Paul Ryan promises the president's actions will be challenged in court. He says the president has never respected the right to safe and legal gun ownership that our nation has valued since its founding. Most of the GOP hopefuls promise they'll undo the president's executive actions. Aware his actions have little staying power if a Republican succeeds him in the White House, the president called on voters to demand gun control at the ballot box.
And if you make it hard for them to win an election, if they block those laws, they'll change course, I promise you.
Another guarantee? When the president talks about guns, more people go out and buy them. And we can expect the president to talk more about guns during his last State of the Union address coming up here in just a few days. That along with more of his ambitious agenda as he begins his final year here in the White House. David.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer with Sean from the frigid White House. When the Brody File rolls on from D.C., a conversation with one of the leading evangelical voices in the country, Dr. Russell Moore, talks about what evangelicals need to think about when voting for a presidential candidate. We're back in a moment. And welcome back to the Brody File, everybody. Time now for our conversation with Dr. Russell Moore. He is a mover, he's a shaker in evangelical circles. He's head of the Southern Baptist Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. That's a mouthful. He's made a few waves, by the way, for emphasizing more of the compassion message of the gospel and sounding somewhat like some of the social justice Christians that are out there. We know who these folks are, right? So that has indeed ruffled some feathers within the evangelical community. Now, part of our conversation centered on some of these GOP candidates that are running for president and what evangelicals need to think about when choosing the right one. Have a look. Presidential politics. I feel like I'm in a reality show and I can't escape.
Right.
Ben Carson, real quick. He gave an interview to Sally Quinn with the Washington Post the other day, talked about how he doesn't believe in a physical place called hell. He doesn't believe in the rapture. There's some other things in there that might give evangelicals pause. What did you make of some of those comments? Did that take you aback a little bit?
No, it didn't surprise me because Ben Carson's a Seventh-day Adventist. And so I think what is surprising is that we have so many evangelicals who believe that Ben Carson is right out of Vacation Bible School when he holds to, he's in a particular church that holds to very unorthodox doctrines. Now, having said that, I don't think that disqualifies him from the presidency any more than I think that Mormonism disqualified Mitt Romney. One doesn't need to be someone that we would want teaching Sunday school in order to faithfully execute the office. What it does mean, though, is I think we ought to stop trying to make our political leaders into spiritual mascots when they're not able to carry that burden and shouldn't be asked to carry that burden. And so I think of the example of Thomas Jefferson. My Baptist ancestors back in the founding era were willing to ally themselves with Thomas Jefferson, even though he was certainly not anyone that we would want teaching anything behind a pulpit. But he had a common interest in religious liberty and freedom, and they were willing to make an alliance on those issues. I think the same thing can be true for presidential candidates.
Those Danbury Baptist, huh?
That's right.
All right, let me ask you, speaking about spiritual mascots, the person that doesn't come to mind necessarily is Donald Trump.
Right.
Are you shaking your head at all of this, wondering, because at one point he was even leading with evangelicals. I don't think he's now leading with evangelicals, but he's still in the mix. I mean,
sure.
I don't even know where to begin. The floor is yours.
Well, I'm really discouraged and disturbed by what we see in the Donald Trump phenomenon, not only because of the lack of seriousness that we've seen in the campaign to this point, but also because of some really troubling statements and policy proposals that have been coming forward. I mean, as someone who is deeply concerned about religious liberty, the sorts of off-the-cuff comments that Trump is making about mosques and Muslims and so forth, no matter how he attempts to walk them back, the instinct there is one that is terrifying to me. Because if you can have a government that can register Muslims and do away with mosques, that's a government that ultimately can do the same thing for evangelical Christians. And so now more than ever, we need a president who really understands religious liberty for all people and is willing to prize that and guard that. Because we're in a time where religious liberty is under assault as it hasn't been in I think, since the founding era.
Let me ask you one last question about Marco Rubio, because the other day he shared the gospel in front of these pastors. I know you've seen the tape.
Yes.
I'll be honest with you, it blew me away. I know it blew the pastors away. I know you've seen it. What did you I can't remember a presidential candidate ever kind of waxing poetic about the gospel like that in a presidential primary season. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, I've been working with Marco Rubio on various issues for years, and many times I've hosted him with a group of pastors, and including well before he was ever a candidate for president. And in every one of those instances, people would walk away blown away and amazed by what he had to say. I think the reason he was effective in that crowd is because he's not meeting with staff members to try to find evangelicalese in order to speak. He really does have deep connections, not only in his Catholic faith. His wife is a member at Christ Fellowship Church in Miami. He attends with her and the kids as well, and has close relationships with many of us in evangelicalism and then in his own community. So I think there's something very real there.
Last question. I said that 2 questions ago, I think. But what do evangelicals need to think about as they kind of try to sift through all of this and make a decision for a presidential candidate? What should be on their mind, and what kind of checklist do they need to at least process through?
Well, I think evangelicals should think through what are the issues that are non-negotiables for us first. So we have to have a candidate who understands the sanctity of human life. We have to have a candidate who values the family and who knows how to protect it. We have to have a candidate who cares about persecuted religious minorities around the world and who is willing to guard religious liberty at home. Those are things that ought to be non-negotiable for us as we look forward. And then to say, who can we see competently carrying out the Romans 13 mission of administering justice as leader of this country, regardless of whether or not we see that person as a brother or sister in Christ. Is that person able to do that with justice? And then, can this person win? I mean, you know, as you're thinking this through, this is an important characteristic. Is this someone who can appeal to the rest of the country, who can build coalitions, and then after election, someone who can govern, someone who can deal with people in the House and in the Senate, and maybe even more importantly, in my mind, somebody who can take on the regulatory bureaucracy of the federal government.
Dr. Russell Moore here on the Brody File. All right, when we come back, trying to make sense of the presidential campaign blitz that is coming soon. We're going inside the numbers with Amber C. Strong next. Welcome back, everybody, to the big show. You know, can you believe there are only 11 months until the general election? I mean, that's right. Now, before that, we've got debate after debate. We've got primary after primary. We got fast food restaurant after fast food restaurant. I mean, it's crazy. And we know it's crazy for us. So here to break down every caucus, every primary, every major event leading up to Election Day is our own Brody File producer, Amber C. Strong.
So the campaign season is crazier than ever, but never fear, the Brody File team is here with something we like to call the Campaign Breakdown.
We will begin by focusing on the Republican race because, let's face it, on the left there are basically 2 options. Sorry, I said it. So, there are 5 major caucus and primary days in 4 different states covering the GOP and the Dems until the big convention, which is, by the way, in July of 2016. Still with me? Good. We have the Iowa caucus, dubbed first in the nation because it's, well, the first caucus to occur. The Iowa caucus sets the tone and momentum for the potential winner and will narrow the field of candidates. A win in Iowa could mean major backing and donor support. Sometimes it means you end up being the party's nominee. And sometimes it doesn't. Then we have the major primaries. There are 2, New Hampshire and South Carolina. After that, a few days down the road, it's the Nevada caucus. And then we end up to the big main course, which is Super Tuesday. That's when another 12 states decide their delegates. In mid-July, we arrive at the conventions. Each party will hold a convention to announce their respective candidates. We hear speeches, meet potential presidents,
the hope of a skinny kid with a funny name who believes that America has a place for him too.
And gear up for the main debate starting 2 months later in mid-September. There are 4 debates where the nominees from both parties and any independents that happen to come along, cue Ross Perot, square off in a political cage match.
Fight!
Not really. Then on November 8th, 2016, you head to the polls and elect the next president of the United States. Well, sort of, if you take into account the Electoral College. That's a whole nother breakdown that's way too smart for us here at The File.
So there you have it, a slew of debates, caucuses, primaries, and 2 conventions away from you deciding the one leader of the free world. If it's still too much, we understand. Follow us on Twitter at The Brody File and at Amber C. Strong for all of your campaign happenings.
Amber C. Strong going to be along for the ride in 2016 along with the whole Brody File crew. We're looking forward to gaining some weight. All right, coming next, stupid criminal tricks. It's making us go Oi Gewalt. Back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. All right, well, look, if you know anything about the Brody File, we love 2 things here. Food, of course, and the mishaps of wannabe criminals. And, well, this week's Oy Vey moment serves up the best of both worlds. Meet our brand of criminal masterminds. Officers arrested the trio after a heist at a local burger joint in Mount Morris, New York. So in addition to grabbing some cash register parts and some loose change, the 3 made off with, wait for it, a large bowl of macaroni salad. Apparently it was just too good to leave behind because police caught up with the criminals by following a trail of macaroni that they left behind as they made their getaway. Way to go, criminals. You go for the macaroni salad and then literally leave the evidence behind. I mean, macaroni salad? Really? What's next? You're going to go for the fruitcake? Oy Gewalt. That's it, everybody. Have a great week. God bless. We'll see you next time.